Prime Field.
Caroline Ducharme is back in the postseason rotation, and that might be the biggest takeaway from UConn's 84-39 demolition of Georgetown. Not because she played huge minutes, not because she stuffed the box score, but because in 6 minutes she looked exactly like the kind of player who can swing a tournament game when nobody sees it coming. 1-3, 0 turnovers, total calm, and suddenly the question every UConn fan is asking is the same one. Is Geno quietly rebuilding trust in number 33 at exactly the right time? And she wasn't the only one. Blanca Kenyan has brought the defensive chaos again. Kayleigh Heckle gave the second unit real scoring punch, and the bench as a whole dropped 22 points, in a game where the intensity never dipped. So today we're grading every key UConn bench piece from the Georgetown win, starting with the comeback story everybody in this fanbase cares about. This was a complete quarter-final beatdown. Number 1, UConn took out 8th-seeded Georgetown 84-39 at Mohegan Sun, pushed the win streak to 48 straight, and kept the conference tournament dominance rolling. The game really turned into a defensive suffocation job in the third quarter, when Georgetown scored just 4 points and made only 1 field goal. That's the kind of stretch where the bench matters. The starters set the tone, but the second unit has to keep the pressure high enough that there's no let-up at all. And that's what stood out here. UConn got 22 bench points, got efficient minutes from multiple reserves, and maybe most importantly got stabilizing basketball from players who are going to matter a lot more once the margin isn't this massive. That's why bench grading after a blowout still matters. You're not just grading points, you're grading trust, you're grading control, you're grading who looks playable when the tournament pressure goes up. Caroline gets an 8.5 out of 10. And if somebody looks at the raw line and says 3 points in 6 minutes, doesn't sound like an 8.5 comma, the answer is simple. This grade is about role execution, and she absolutely nailed the role. She played 6 minutes, scored 3 points, hit her only 3-point attempt, and committed 0 turnovers. That alone is clean. But the deeper part is what those minutes represented. After that 15.5-month recovery journey from endured head and neck injuries, just seeing her step into a postseason game and look composed matters a lot. Her true shooting percentage in this game was 50.0%, which is solid but not eye-popping. But context is everything here. She wasn't out there hunting shots. She was out there spacing the floor, calming the unit, and proving that the jumper is still there. For a low-usage specialist, 1 made 3 in a tournament setting changes how the defense has to think. And this is where the real debate starts, because Caroline has always had that tournament gear reputation. That feeling that if a game gets tense and the offense gets tight, she can come in cold and hit a shot that settles everybody down. This game didn't prove that fully, but it absolutely reopened the conversation. And then there's the veteran stabilization piece. Her season assist to turnover ratio is 1.75 comma, and even when she's not creating a ton, the value is that she doesn't disrupt the flow. That showed up again here. No rushed decisions, no wasted possessions, no chaos. When the younger guards are flying around at full speed, Caroline feels like the adult in the room. That team mom discussion from the fan base feels very real after a game like this. My opinion is that if she's healthy enough to give you even 6 to 10 clean minutes, that is a real March weapon. And honestly, I'm not even sure you need to force more than that. There's a version of Caroline's role where the value is in the timing. You don't need 20 minutes. You need 1 huge shot and 1 huge possession. So yes, the rating is high, and I think it is deserved. Blanca gets a 9 out of 10. This is exactly why 6th Woman of the Year matters. Her line was 9 points, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 turnovers in 19 minutes. The scoring wasn't loud, and her game-true shooting percentage was 42.9%. So if someone wants to grade her purely off shot efficiency in this one game, they might go lower. That would completely miss what she did. She was a defensive disruptor again. Georgetown turned it over 26 times, and Blanca's pressure was part of that avalanche. She changes the pace of the game. She makes everything feel 1 speed too fast for the opponent. That kind of impact doesn't always show up cleanly in the box score, but UConn fans know it when they see it. And season long, the case is overwhelming. She averaged 10 points, 0 points per game, shot 54.9% from the field, and 38.2% from 3. Her effective field goal percentage for the season sits at 61.0%. That is elite reserve production. So this is not just energy for the sake of energy. This is productive, efficient, winning energy. The most interesting debate with Blanca right now is whether she's actually more valuable off the bench than she would be as a starter. And honestly, I think the answer might be yes. Because when she checks in against second units, the game tilts. The athleticism, the defensive rotations, the transition pressure, all of it feels even more violent when the other team has already dealt with UConn's starters. There's also the January shoulder injury context. Some fans are still wondering whether she's fully back to that super aggressive early season version of herself. That's a fair question. But even when the scoring isn't explosive, the impact is still obvious. She can defend multiple positions, force mistakes, and keep the defensive standard where it has to be. My take is pretty simple. Starting Blanca might actually make UConn less terrifying, not more terrifying, because her bench role is so destructive. She feels like the change of pace weapon that breaks teams the second they relax. That has huge value in March. Kayleigh Heckle gets an 8 out of 10. She finished with 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 1 turnover in 19 minutes. And that line tells you exactly what her job is becoming. She's the high-octane engine of the second unit. When UConn wants to keep extending a lead without slowing down, Heckel is often the one forcing the pace. Her game-true shooting percentage was 66.7%, and that jumps off the page. That is excellent efficiency for a bench guard playing this fast, and the season-long growth is just as important. She's at 6.9 points and 2.9 assists per game, and her 2.6 assist to turnover ratio is one of the better marks you're going to see for a bench guard in this league. That's the meaningful part of her development. Everybody sees the burst, everybody sees the speed, but the real improvement is that she's not just playing fast anymore. She's playing useful fast. That's a huge difference. Now, there is still a fair criticism around her game. Some fans think that in transition she can get a little locked into her own path, and that she'll miss an open player in the secondary break. So that critique doesn't come from nowhere, but in this game, the balance was good. 8 points, efficient scoring, 2 assists, and only 1 turnover is a strong bench guard performance. My opinion is that Heckel becomes even more valuable the deeper you get into March, because she gives UConn something every elite team needs off the bench. A backup point guard who can actually score, not just survive possessions, not just dribble the air out of the ball, actually score. That changes the whole shape of the second unit, and if she keeps pairing pace with ball security like this, then a lot of the turnover anxiety around the bench starts fading. Alli Zeble gets a 9.5 out of 10. It's a tiny sample, so there's only so high you can push the grade. But you can only grade the minutes in front of you, and those minutes were efficient. Her role is pretty clear. She's another perimeter threat who can come in and punish a defense for relaxing. And that matters because we've already seen her have bigger scoring moments this season, including that 20-point game for teaming off the bench against Creighton. So even in limited usage, threat is real. It was clean, but it was brief. Still, she feels like one of those players UConn fans keep in the back of their minds for later rounds. Because if a game gets weird and you need one surprise shot from outside the main bench trio, Zeble is definitely on that list. Jana El Alfy gets an 8 out of 10. That is quality zone interior relief. UConn does not need her to dominate touches. They need physical presence, rebounding, and steady front court minutes. She gave them exactly that. What stands out most is how her game fit the biggest postseason theme from this bench performance. Stability. Ducharme, Zeble, and El Alfy combined for 0 turnovers. And Jana deserves real credit for her part in that, because reserve bigs can absolutely bog down possessions when the timing is off. That didn't happen here. And then there's the injury return angle that fans are watching closely. A lot of people are trying to figure out how close Jana is to her real ceiling. I don't think she's all the way there yet. But games like this show that the version of Jana UConn has right now is already useful. And if that keeps trending up, then the front court depth conversation, gets a lot more interesting. When you put it all together, this was a really strong bench showing. UConn got 22 points from the second unit. They got disruptive defense from Blanca, scoring punch from Heckel, interior relief from Jana, spacing from Zeble, and maybe the most emotionally important development of the night, Caroline Ducharme looking like a real postseason option again. And maybe the biggest number of all is the ball security from the stabilizing pieces. In a season where turnovers have absolutely been a point of frustration, this bench gave UConn the opposite: calm possessions, clean decisions, reliable role play. That is exactly what wins tournament games when the pressure rises. Overall, the bench gets an 8.6 out of 10 for this game. This isn't just because the box score looked nice in a blowout. It's because the bench did what a championship-level bench is supposed to do. They extended the standard. They didn't just survive the non-starter minutes. They kept squeezing the game. And the bigger conversation is getting very real now. The second unit has multiple ways to help UConn in March. Defense, pace, spacing, veteran calm, rebounding. That's a serious formula. Now I want to hear from the diehards. Did Caroline do enough in 6 minutes to earn more trust going into the semifinal, or do you think her best role is still that ultra-specific shooter role, where she comes in cold and swings one huge possession? And what about Blanca? Would you keep her exactly where she is as the ultimate 6-woman weapon? Or do you think UConn is leaving too much on the table by not expanding her role even more? Drop your bench grades in the comments and give me your answer to this too. If UConn needs one late shot in a tournament game, who from this bench do you trust the most? And with Creighton coming up in the semifinal, that's where all of this gets more interesting. Blowout bench minutes are one thing. Doing it again when the stakes rise is something else. And if the second unit keeps bringing this level of detail, UConn gets even scarier from here.
Prime Field.